Welcome to my channel. I'm your host, Dynamic. And this is about the journey and how did we go from this point to the journey of my fibroid surgery. That's right. Well, it all began in 2020 when I was first diagnosed with having fibroids. And I did everything possible not to have this surgery. I even waited 5 years and I tried an IUD. I tried medication that was prescribed by my doctors. And the last thing I tried was a tea. You know how you see those teas online that say you can shrink your fibroids. Well, I gave that a try, and needless to say, I am here 5 weeks post-op. Now, let's dive right into it. I won't give you the name brand of the tea, but obviously, I'm here, in this chair, and the tea didn't work either. My biggest question was, how did I even get fibroids? You see, this journey began back in 2012 when I questioned everything about my life. And if you're like me, I do dive into the spiritual aspects of the body. And the womb is one of the things and places where women harvest their suppressions. How did I end up here? You hear so many people talk about, their family history, diet, exercise, and having an ethnic cultural background which predisposes you to more. But my soul has led me to this place and having a hysterectomy. I don't know about culture over another culture, but looking at me, I am an African American woman. And I said, well, ethnicity, what does that have to do with anything? Or my fibroids. So let me take you all on a journey way back when. And I'm going to bring you up to this point because what I expected didn't quite happen. Okay, so let's go back to 2012. I had an epiphany moment in 2012, 13 years ago, to reroute my entire life. What does that even mean, Kim? If you're a woman like me, I decided 20 years ago to get a divorce. After 20 years of being married, maybe you've been married more than that, but that was a huge part of my young adult life. And I moved on to the next chapter of my life. And at this time, I was 47 years old, and I had opened up a fitness studio, doing really, really well. It was a boutique fitness studio, and everything was taking off great. I had a career. My son had graduated from high school. My baby son, who wasn't a baby, he was in 11th grade. He's getting ready to graduate himself. And I felt pretty good because I was on this journey. I remember in 2012 having this shift, sitting in this very room, writing a forgiveness letter. I was watching Oprah's segment, and she had, I think it was Mr. Schultz on there from Starbucks. He was talking about forgiveness, and I had to make a decision to get a divorce. The person on my list was my father. That was the very first person I needed to forgive for all of the things that I wanted him to become, that he didn't be. So I'm not going to give you a sad video story because that's not what this is about. I'm just giving you some context and background of how I got here. And I did some research on spirituality and the development of a woman's womb. See, we have 3 brains. We have the physical brain, the heart brain, and then the womb. And fibroids, I took it as these tumors. They were benign tumors, were all the suppressions that I had kept over the years of not living my authentic self. See, I always thought that authenticity was just being who I was. But there's a little bit more to it. It was being truthful to who I was. So fast forward 2020. Here we are. My doctor says, hey, you have fibroids. We've noticed you need to do an ultrasound and some MRIs to see if we further need diagnosis. And I know what she was looking for with those ultrasounds and CT scans and MRIs. And come to find out, my fibroids were not cancerous, thank God, but they were intramuscular, meaning they were growing outside of my uterus. Yeah, there are different types of fibroids. And my fibroids were growing into the uterus lining outside of the uterus, which made it really complicated. So I even asked the radiologist, it's a nice guy. His last name was Bowles. And I asked him, are you in a relation to Pitney Bowles? He said, I wish I was, but no. What would you do? I asked the radiologist, what would he do? Should I, get this surgery? And he told me, you know what? It's a mess in there, meaning it was a mess in my womb. And if you're not having any symptoms, I wouldn't do anything. So at that time, I was having no symptoms. I didn't have any heavy cycles. I didn't have any excess urine. So I wouldn't do anything. That's what he told me. Now, fast forward a year. We're in 2021, went by. And I began to have heavy bleeding and pelvic pressure. I'm a runner. So every few minutes, I was, a little leak here, a little leak there, urine from the pressure. And I was like, well, what is going on? I just went to the bathroom before I got on this trail. What is happening in my uterus? And I'm also a fitness trainer. So I still did not want this surgery. I fear my independence was going to be taken away. So I talked to my doctor and I said, well, let me just go plant-based, vegan. I went plant-based and vegan, totally vegan in 2020. I started my vegan journey. And it's been 5 years on that journey. And I went full-fledged 5 years vegan. But here's what happened. I enjoyed the energy that I felt from the veganism. But what was happening with the heavy bleeding and becoming severely anemic, I didn't realize my breathing had become so labored. And the reason behind it was anemia. I do remember keeping a space heater on and sitting down in front of the space heater while eating all these cups of ice. And my son said, is something wrong, Mom? You really need to get that checked. It's 80 degrees in this house and you got the heater on and you're eating ice. Loads of ice. I couldn't get enough of ice. I had developed this pickup behind my anemia. So my doctor did these blood labs and she said, you are anemic, severely anemic, where I needed a blood transfusion. Although I didn't get one, she said, because let's simply try iron infusions first. I'm always the person I want to do the least restrictive thing. So I was put on iron transfusions for 6 months. 6 months of iron transfusion. And by this time, we are now into 2024 with these iron transfusions. And on top of the iron transfusions, I decided at the top of 2024 to get an IUD. She said, let's do some hormone therapy and see. You're getting ready to go into menopause anyway. You're 51 years old. And see if that bleeding will subside. Well, it didn't work. We thought that it would shrink the uterus. And I was hitting menopause. Because, I'm now 51. What's going on? But, with any medications and diagnosis, it's trial and error. I was looking for a cure, but I didn't want to hear the diagnosis. And I have a great doctor. And I trusted her a lot, y'all. And the decision that I needed to have this surgery actually came from the confirmation of a lady that I trained in the studio. She said, hey, I just mentioned it one day. About me having fibroids and needing a hysterectomy. She said it was the best thing that I've ever done. I said, really? And she said, yeah. She felt so much better, ladies. Now, here's the thing. I didn't understand that tumors, benign, were actually competing for the nutrients in my body. Especially my vitamin C, my vitamin D, calcium, and that iron, because I was letting out all of this blood every month. Now I am, post-menopausal. I hadn't had the surgery yet, and I'm living my best vegan life, I thought, because I felt great, besides the fact that I'm eating all of this ice and I'm bleeding heavily every month. Other than that, I did feel good. I wasn't tired or lethargic like most people. But I have these things on the inside of me acting parasitic, where they're leeching on to my uterus and competing for my nutrition and my blood. So I really thought about that. So my doctor and I, we scheduled the appointment, and I had to have 2 biopsies done. And that was something else I was really getting weary of, those biopsies, to make sure that I didn't have cancer. So beginning of 2025 in April, I had the IUD removed, and along with a really good scraping of that uterus to make sure I did not have uterine cancer. I also had another scraping and another biopsy being put underneath anesthesia again, because if you know, these scrapings are very painful. So before the surgery in September, I had to make sure I didn't have cervical or uterine cancer. Now, I didn't schedule the surgery immediately because I wanted to wait until the end of the year, because I'm a fitness instructor. And I know that may sound cliche to some. You say you're putting your health off and putting it on hold for other people. And I don't know about for other people. But I am putting it off because I'm committed to the journey. And I'm not suggesting that you do what I did. But this is just something that I made the decision to do. I needed it to be at the end of the year so that I could have more time to heal and show up as my best self in the next year. I'm now 5 weeks post-op. My surgery was November 6th of this year, 2025. And I had a total hysterectomy. Now, it was 2 parts. It was started out to be just a laparoscopic hysterectomy. That's what that doctor and I discussed. Laparoscopic surgery during the scheduling of my surgery. But it ended up being an open hysterectomy. I had already had 1 ovary removed. I didn't mention that. I had an ovary removed in 2017 because I had an ovarian protrusion or contortion where my left ovary, it flipped over one morning. I didn't know. It had become really, really heavy from the endometriosis, and it just flipped over the years of all that weight of gunk on the outside of it. I also had suffered from years of PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. And I had my tubes tied earlier on after my last child. So during this surgery, I had the uterus removed, my fallopian tubes removed, and the cervix. So I had to have a cuff put in place above the vagina where it's sewn together to make this cuff to hold up the intestines and the bladder. Listen, ladies, I encourage you to strength train as much as possible to strengthen that pelvic floor. I had diagnosed, the radiologist did, with 5 fibroids, but one was missed. And during surgery, they discovered that I had a large fibroid behind my bladder. And my surgeon, and I thank God for her, because she had to make a decision whether to leave it or to open me. And she opened me, which takes longer recovery time. I ended up having an open hysterectomy, and the surgery lasted a little longer. I'm not saying this to scare you, but that's why my surgery became open. And anybody out there that is fearing an open hysterectomy, I'm going to tell you something. I thank God for the surgeons and their decisions that they make to do whatever surgery they feel that is best for you during that time period. I was afraid of the open hysterectomy because I believe in a lot of aesthetics. I'm a fitness person, and I've worked really hard on this body. But my abdominal wellness reset, I'm thanking God for her, because she didn't want me to have all this blood loss. And so that was the best decision. After a week, I was up and moving around. I didn't have to have any more pain medications because I was given a lot of pain meds in the hospital. And I thank God for them. They managed my pain really, really well. I had minimal pain after this surgery in the hospital, around the clock. The only thing I can suggest, when you're going into the hospital, if you know that you have a special dietary need, please request that in advance. I didn't do that, and my family members had to bring me the things that I would eat. I was also given 2 nerve blocks to help me manage pain, 2 nerve blocks in my belly, which I'm thankful for. I'm having minimal numbness. All the feeling is just about back in my tummy. And I'm on week 5. And during this week 5, I'm recovering. I'm feeling really, really good. I'm back to walking 3 miles now. I don't really push myself. And when they say rest, they do mean rest. It's very important that you listen to your body. You may say, okay, well, I feel good, and you will. You will feel really, really good on the outside. But think about it, ladies. Think about this. You don't know the repair that your body is actually undergoing on the inside. So rest. Rest, rest, rest. Because inside of your body needs time for recovery. I have a cuff that's in there, meaning the top of the vaginal area is stitched together. And that's to help protect my organs, intestines, and my bladder, to keep them in place. So don't pick up anything heavy. I didn't realize how important the core is. Even my coffee pot, filling it with water and walking from the sink to the coffee pot, I could feel my abs contract. So pay attention to your body. Picking up milk. Even if you feel good, even if you are walking, take small steps. Don't walk too fast. Walk slow. And when I tell you to listen to your body, do that. And this was a hard thing for me. It was a hard mental thing for me because I'm so used to moving around. So it's the hardest thing I ever had to do before in my life. I do push my body to its limits. And this is why I named it an abdominal wellness reset. This is your shift in your life. But here's what I discovered, that rest is a part of your recovery. So I needed this time, and I feel really, really good. I haven't had any hot flashes because remember, I had everything removed. So that was another big fear of mine. I was listening to the people in my community about all these hot flashes, and I'm going to make another video because I do believe that there is a connection between nutrition that I've been using and hot flashes. My doctor gave me some patient education. This is really important. I want you to get this. Gave me patient education. The nurse actually delivered the education for me before I was released to go home. And a part of that patient education, the nurse nor I understood why I needed a low sodium diet. Think about that. When people have any type of surgery, especially an abdominal surgery, there's swelling and inflammation involved. She said, you don't have high blood pressure. Why does she give you a low sodium diet? Why do you need a low sodium diet? It worked for me. Well, unbeknownst to me, sodium increases swelling. And think about it. When you think about salt poured on top of any type of meat, it causes things to swell. Think about it. The expansion with sodium and inflammation. Your body is fighting hard enough for you to recover. So I went on this low sodium diet. Fruits, vegetables, fresh juices. I have a juicer here at home. And I'm still doing that. This is week 5. I just reintroduced, and I added fish starting in April to get my anemia, or the anemia at a place where I'm no longer anemic. And so since April of 2025, I decided to reincorporate meat, only fish, into my diet because of the anemia. And the anemia has gotten better. I'm no longer anemic. My blood stores have improved. And now I'm thinking about, since these fibroids have been removed, I'm thinking about going back to full veganism because I felt so good. I love tofu. Tofu is this thing that, you just take on. It takes on the flavors of whatever you add to it. And so the type of hysterectomy that I had and everything removed was a total hysterectomy. And like I said, my biggest fear was that I was going to go into these big mood swings and immediate menopause, which I did go into immediate menopause. But I didn't have all these hot flashes and night sweats, and I'm not experiencing any brain fog. And I'm saying that because this is my experience. Immediate menopause means that my body is no longer making estrogen to regulate those hormone levels. And if I can encourage you to do anything, is to get up and start moving if you haven't had this surgery. Because without that estrogen, our bones become brittle, all types of things, hair, nails. But I haven't had any hot flashes. So I'm not saying this will work for you. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is this diet of phytoestrogens has helped me, I believe, a lot in nutrition. I do eat quite a bit of tofu. When I say quite a bit, I mean it's 3 to 4 ounces per meal. And I mentioned it to my doctor, and she said, yes, phytoestrogens do mimic estrogen. And I've been eating quite a bit of tofu over the last few years. If tofu is not your jam, I get that, right? Because culturally, I didn't grow up eating tofu. I said I wasn't going to do a nutrition video, and this is not about nutrition. So I'm going to do that one later. But I do want to mention estrogens and phytoestrogens, especially coming out of a abdominal surgery, hysterectomy, total hysterectomy, where you go into menopause. You can get phytoestrogens from chia seeds or legumes. There are many things out there will mimic estrogen in the body, which can have an astonishing effect on your hot flashes and your mood. Gut health and the brain is connected. And all hot flashes is your body's temperature thermostat trying to regulate itself, because it's like, where is my estrogen? And you're thinking about, this thing is just burning me up. Now listen, if you're thinking about having an abdominal hysterectomy and you're thinking that this is going to be the worst thing in your life, and you've put it off like me for 4 or 5 years, I'm here to tell you it has not been as scary as I had imagined it in my mind. We build a narrative, this story, and we try to make this story true. I thought it was going to be like, the worst thing ever, but I'm back to taking my showers, stepping in and out of the bathtub. It's 5 weeks post-op, walking. I didn't have any oozing from my stitches. I had 6-inch cut, and she glued it together. So I do, recommend that you plan ahead of time. This is what I recommend. Plan your nutrition ahead of time. Plan the things you're going to need. Shop for your foods. Take your foods with you to the hospital. If you don't have a support system, you become your support early. My bed is really, really high, so I had to get this step from Home Depot to get up in the bed. So anything that you can think of, I use these pillows for back support. Now, when I came home from the hospital, I could not sleep in my bed. I tried, but it didn't give my back enough support. So I slept on my couch for the first 7 days at home. I just slid a pillow behind my back. The other thing that helped me was I kept my knees pressed together as I turned in and off the sofa and now in and out of the bed. It helps the pelvic floor to be more stabilized. That's a tip I want to give to you. My friend, like I said, I couldn't sleep in my bed. My posture. I didn't realize when you have an open hysterectomy or total hysterectomy and they take your cervix, your uterus, your fallopian, everything out, your back really needs some support because your organs are reshifting. So you have to support your posture, keeping those shoulders back and up, taking those deep breaths as much as possible, because they've removed quite a bit of organs out of my abdominal cavity, and sometimes the organs will shift. So deep breathing, and I have a video on here about deep diaphragmatic breathing and pulling the pelvic floor up. I hope that this video has been helpful. Subscribe to the channel because this channel is about health, wellness, and fitness in your midlife shift. Understanding that you can be fit and free. Information that will help you move forward in the second phase of your life. Hysterectomy is not the end. It is the beginning. It is your new beginning of your wellness abdominal reset. Please share with other people, other women who are thinking about having a hysterectomy and who are on the fence about having a hysterectomy. So stay tuned, my friend, for nutrition that will be on the next video.